What you need, I think, is a strong middle, strong political middle, a strong middle that is stronger than the extremes. And I think that if you deal with there's an existential risk of dealing with that problem domestically. For example, I won't go at length, but a president who's president of all the people, who has a bipartisan cabinet and can draw together to do a restructuring. You need a restructuring of the system, because I'm sure this is going to be misunderstood, but the profit system has to produce the objective in which there's better equal opportunity and all that. The second thing is there's an existential risk of war, international war. So when we deal with that existential risk of international war, if there was the objective of establishing a mechanism by which that will not happen and red lines will exist, then we will maintain peace and thoughtfulness. There's a lot of good things going on. The good things have to do with innovation. All of us are exposed to incredible amounts of innovation that can go on. If that can go on in a peaceful environment, so that it produces productivity, we will continue to raise our living standards if we can remain peaceful and empathy, mutual consideration, thinking about the whole, and produce productivity rather than produce waste. I think those are the things that are conceivable of how to do it. I don't know anybody who is talking about doing it that way, but yes, there's a way. I think you have to understand the mechanics, the cause-effect. It's a very basic thing. When you produce a larger deficit, you have to sell your bonds. You have to know who the buyers of the bonds are. If you don't have enough buyers of the bonds, you're going to have a buyer's strike, so they're going to sell off. And this is, I think, what happened in the UK is a canary in the coal mine. That if you take what's happening in Europe as a whole, the level of interest rates relative to the level of the inflation rates, and the terrible choice that has to be made about, if you raise interest rates, what does that mean to Italy's debt service payments? Who is going to make up that difference? There's just mechanics to this. So I think that we are in a situation generally where there's not coordination. You could take the monetary policy of Japan and it'd be totally different monetary policy. And so, but there's still a trade-off, because the bonds are going to go down in value because they're not going to own them. Now the question is, do they go down in value because the currency goes down in value, or because the bond price goes down in value? But one way or another, they're going to go down in value. And the interest rate now, with all of this debt and how it's been structured when all money was free and interest rates were low, now an interest rate that is high enough to deal with inflation and also high enough to provide an adequate return for the bond investor is too high of an interest rate for the debtor. So now we have that structural trade-off, and the dominoes are falling in a very, very classic way. For example, if you take high-yield investing, they were called high yield before they were, and therefore risky, before you had an interest rate change. Now you had the risk-free rate go up to 4%, and you have the credit spreads go up to 5%. Now they have a 9% interest rate. That won't work for those. So they are going to they're going to be the first ones to go, and you have this series of dynamics. That's the mechanics.
And the fall of the dominoes has started?
Yeah, you can see the fall of the dominoes starting. You could see it as like, who has the cash? How much cash do you have that are going to get you through? Are you going to have a year or 2 or 3, or don't you have the cash? So I can go on at length, but in each of those dominoes, and the dominoes usually fall in the same kind of ways, and they're falling in the same kind of ways. Jamie mentioned they're 9 months. That's a reasonable time frame. If you take a look at the cash flows and you watch those things, that's what it looks like.
I really don't want to end on a down note of dominoes falling. we are here at the end of the year, as we looked forward to 2023. There's a holiday season in many parts of the world of different faiths about to begin. So imagine I am, for whatever purpose, the fairy godmother, and I have at my hand a wand where I can grant you one wish. One wish. And it's got to be a practical wish. It can't be peace in the world. But I can change one thing for you. I'm stalling to give you time to think of something good.
Yeah.
Are we starting with you?
I remember this saying. I don't know who said it. I think it was Confucius. He said something like, if you don't know where your destination is, there are no favorable winds. We should know what is exactly that we want to achieve.
Right.
Unfortunately, the world today doesn't know what they want to
So
achieve.
what's your wish that I can grant for you?
For me, it's very easy. I have Vision 2030. I want to achieve it.
Is it what?
His Vision 2030.
I think even my wand is going to need a bit more power than that. Steve, what's your one wish that you would like me to grant you? And practical, not... Yeah, let's keep it practical, like the excellency.
Richard, it would be great if you had that power. But I'd wish for normalization of international and domestic relations.
Catherine, I can grant you one wish.
Strong European unity, particularly on energy matters. Strong leadership from Europe on energy matters.
I said I could grant a wish, not a miracle. Strong leadership. David, one wish.
Strong U.S. leadership in sending certain messages around the world to help create a framework so we can all work together and move forward.
Haldoon, your one wish. I can come back to you.
I'm struggling to understand your definition because that's a very also quite a ambitious target. You just accept it as a wish.
Oh, but it is.
Yeah,
Aim high.
I'm going to go more ambitious. I'm going to say peace and stability in the world, and I'm going to stand by that because you're a magician. You can give these wishes.
I'll allow it you on this occasion. Ray, one wish.
Well, I think yours is the great starting point because, and so what are those things? Those things, and I'm sorry, I won't go. But in other words, I think we want common prosperity, meaning, in other words, we want things that are good for us all and opportunity, and we want peace in the world. And so you have to actually put metrics to those things. And then a reform of systems in which there is unity. So I want strong, middle, bipartisan that puts going to war with each other as a horrible perspective and that puts working together to try to achieve those metrics would be the thing that I would want most.